What is the funniest or maybe weirdest story you might have heard when it comes to convincing people to adopt digital banking?
See, a lot of stories I've heard which really drives purpose. There is, a market visit I'd gone to, in Punjab, a village, where there were actually 13 villagers there who haven't received their PM Kisan subsidy for the last several months. In one case, there was a senior citizen who hadn't received it for 2 years.
Okay.
And the reason is because their bank account was frozen. What we did is we went and opened their Airtel Payments Bank account. Within minutes, they got all the pending subsidies.
If you have to explain what is a payments bank to somebody in village, how do you do that? I mean, what are the top 2 or 3 lines which you tell them?
For low-income consumers, I think the first and most important thing is access, where you can open a bank account with us at a Kirana outlet who is actually your friend.
Okay.
The second thing is around trust. We come from the same brand as Airtel, which is amongst possibly the top 2-3 most trusted brands in the country. The third aspect is really around security. So you can do all your financial transactions with a biometric.
What are the challenges when it comes to cybersecurity and how to convince people that they can still be there?
Yeah, post-COVID, Abhinav, I think the total number of cyber frauds which has happened in the country has actually gone up quite significantly. It's happened across the world, but it's more so in India. Only last month, my mother got a call, from someone posing that he is from a bank and, he wants to offer a great FD to my mother at some 12% or something like that. And my mom was like really thrilled, saying great interest. And, he started sort of doing various stuff. And, thankfully, my mom had the sense of saying, I will not share an OTP. And that's where the call ended.
If you have a yes, you can say profit, or maybe you can say yes, or you can just say pass if you don't agree with that section. 25 दिन में पैसा double.
Pass for sure.
Financial influencers teaching financial habits.
Well, I think
you cannot get a profit or pass. Hello and welcome to Why Not Mint Money, your trusted guide to personal finance. Because who doesn't want to mint money? My name is Abhinav Trivedi, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host. I'm joined by Ganesh, COO of Airtel Payments Bank, and today we'll be talking financial inclusion. But before I get to that, Ganesh, what does the job of a COO entail? And do you advertise this job on LinkedIn, by the way?
No, we don't. Thankfully, we don't have the need to do that.
Okay.
Basically, as an organization, we are here to drive digital and financial inclusion. I'm a part of the leadership team, and my job is really to look at what our medium-term plans are and see how it can be executed very, very well to deliver the results.
Okay, so Ganesh, since I was a kid, when I used to go to bank with my father, I used to get scared because it used to, I don't know whether you share the same experience, but it felt like, going to a psychiatric ward and everybody is staring at you, looking at you and assessing your financial abilities. I mean, if I time travel and ask those uncles and aunties who were giving me that look, I mean, they might just say that banking is not for the kids. But times have changed today. It's 2025. Banks talk the language of the street. Okay, their ads are so customized. Their offerings are so customized. In fact, it's now on the fingertips. You must have seen a lot of journey. So what, according to you, has changed? How has this industry evolved in terms of communications?
So let me talk about the digital part of the business first.
Sure.
I think close to 480 billion digital transactions are likely to happen in the next 2 to 3 years in India in a year. Close to 500 million Indians who are doing digital transactions, on a very, very regular basis. So I think that's the size and scale which has really, really changed over the last several years, I would say. Of course, post-COVID, some of these metrics have gone up dramatically, but I think that's one big change where a lot of customers are actually going towards digital. The second key change, Abhinav, is really India is unique to wanting a phygital sort of structure.
Phygital?
Yes, which means you also want, your friendly neighborhood Kirana with whom you would want to have a conversation with and talk about multiple things, including the weather and, the politics and so on and so forth. And by the way, also do your financial transactions, including looking at your transaction history or sending money to someone and so on and so forth. So that, to me, I think, especially in tier 4, 5, and 6, which is low POPs data, I think has come up as a very, very big need for consumers. So to me, I think these are two big trends which India has seen. India has seen over the last several years, I would say, and I think will continue to see over the next coming quarters.
But talking about the word phygital, do you think it was a desperate need for somebody, to jump the guns? Because how did this word phygital come into being and what does it exactly mean?
Yeah. So see, let me again talk about some metrics on India. there are 635,000 villages in the country. There are only 55,000 ATMs in rural, which means you've got one ATM for maybe 8 to 9 villages.
Correct.
So the problem in rural is that consumers have to actually travel 10 to 12 kilometers to go to an ATM and withdraw cash. Now, this is where the need for a physical branch kind of a concept, what we call BC agents, which effectively is a Kirana outlet, which is somewhere close to your village. The Kirana guy is possibly, your friend with whom you've been, buying and, doing stuff for the last several years, I would say. He's a part of that village. Converting that villager into a BC agent who is enabled for financial transactions where you can actually withdraw cash, deposit cash, send money, and do all your banking transactions which you would do in a typical bank branch. I think that's really where the need for phygital came in, and that's something which we've done very, very well. We've got close to 5 lakh BC agents in the country.
Okay, on ground.
On the ground, almost 70% of them are in tier 4, 5, 6, which is less than 5,000 population villages. And I think that's the place where financial inclusion is actually happening at very, very significant scale.
But Ganesh, what happens is like you and I having this conversation in a corporate setup, but on ground, situation is still evolving, for the lack of better word. When I was a kid, again, I'll go back to my childhood because I love it. There were cases where people didn't want to come into formal banking because they were scared. Okay, you remember that? Have you seen Angur, this movie? I don't know.
Yeah,
Sanjeev Kumar?
yeah. Yes,
okay,
I did.
so there was a line that कि पैसे बैंक में नहीं रखने क्योंकि government देख लेती है. Okay, there was a time in that era, and even today, people are scared to come into banking because they are scared. They're scared of the consequences. They're scared of eyes, and they feel कि चोरी हो गया तो. What is the biggest challenge in terms of reach? And for a bank like Airtel Payments Bank, what is the challenge which you have faced on the ground in terms of perception, in terms of reach, in terms of technology, which is stopping digital inclusion on the ground?
I think I've a great point. Let me talk about this in 2 parts. Okay. One is, the fear of actually wanting to keep money in a bank branch. Especially in rural, especially amongst women, we are seeing this change happen very, very significantly. See, a lot of consumers, especially women in rural, typically want to save 300, 400, 500 rupees every month. They get money from their spouses or from their relatives or from their earnings, and typically they keep it as cash in gullak or under their bed or under their mattress and so on and so forth. That has risks because it can get stolen. So with Airtel Payments Bank, we have seen a large number of women who are opening bank accounts with us, going to the nearby Kirana outlet, who is a BC agent, where you can, as I said, deposit cash. They are taking this 100 rupees every week and depositing money into that bank account because they know it's going to be very, very safe. And this, they have done it over a period of time. So over a period of time, they then accrue some amount of money, which they use for their daughter's education or marriage or anything or any other sort of event. So I would say, Abhinav, that the first point is a lot of behavior, especially amongst women, we've seen with Airtel Payments Bank has actually changed to saying, money is safer in the bank account rather than being in the mattress. I think that's one part I wanted to mention. The second part really is about, and you spoke about the challenges about how do you drive infrastructure. Actually, to me, I would not say challenge, but I would say the opportunity. Because as I said, 635,000 villages, only 55,000 ATMs. Now, what we've done is to look at this in maybe 4 parts. The first one is to say, where do you want to go? So one thing, of course, let's go to each of these 635,000 villages, but that's not precision. That's not being focused. So what we've done is we have identified 143,000 villages in the country where there are more than 100 households who are getting a subsidy every month, and where the nearest bank branch or ATM is more than 10 kilometers away.
Okay, so nearest one.
Yeah, nearest one. So we know that this is a problem to solve for that household. Because they get DBT, they then need to travel, they're not sure how to withdraw cash and so on and so forth. So we've gone there. So one is we have identified which are the markets where we want to get going. Second is, as you mentioned, we use technology very, very extensively. We are a digital bank. Everything right from onboarding, as in how how the BC agent gets onboarded or how the customer gets onboarded. If there is any self-service which the retailer or the Kirana guy needs to do or the customer needs to do, or if there is any transactions we need to monitor on a regular basis, because we are a bank, and as a responsible bank, it's important to monitor some of these transactions to understand if things are all right as per plans and so on. So everything we use technology and AI very, very extensively to get stuff going. I think this is the second part. The third part really is of course, we've got a really strong, passionate sales team who drives execution very well. Their job is to go to a particular village, identify which kirana is a potential BC agent, what's the profile of that person, is that person trusted in the environment, in the ecosystem, in the village, and then onboard that person, and finally training. How do you train these folks so that they actually, become someone who can promote and talk about financial inclusion, talk about saving, which really helps the ecosystem. So to me, I think that's the way in which we've approached, the business.
Coming back to the conversation, which is the weirdest story you have heard, like when you go on the ground, talk to people, your salespeople, which is the funniest, or maybe for weirdest and funniest story or incident you might have heard? Because I'll tell you, I come from a small town, and the story which I heard was that this particular ATM is haunted. Okay, वहाँ पे भूत रहता है. So people don't go to withdraw from that particular ATM because they fear repercussions. What is the funniest or maybe weirdest story you might have heard when it comes to convincing people to adopt digital banking?
See, I'll be honest, and maybe you may be disappointed. It's neither funny nor weird, but it is a lot of stories I've heard which really drives purpose of financial inclusion. There is, a market visit I'd gone to, in Punjab, a village, where there were actually 13 villagers there who haven't received their PM Kisan subsidy for the last several months. In one case, there was a senior citizen who hadn't received it for 2 years.
Okay.
And the reason is because their bank account was frozen and hence subsidies couldn't come through.
Okay.
What we did is we went and opened their Airtel Payments Bank account. Within minutes, they got all the pending subsidies, in their account. And the delight which was there on their face was something which really gives me a lot of satisfaction, gives every employee of the bank a lot of satisfaction. So, Abhinav, I think that's the story I've heard, I have seen, I've met a lot of consumers, face to face. And that's something which makes every employee of the bank proud, because fact is that that's the real reason why we exist. And solving for consumers' problems is, what gives us satisfaction. And there are lots of such stories.
Purpose-driven corporate work.
Yes.
But so let me bring that to another part of the equation. Women have of lately joined. What we saw in demonetization, most of the money was stored by women at various places in their house. So what I wanted to understand from you is how is women inclusivity? Because I personally know a lot of women who don't even have bank accounts. Okay. Now, when it comes to financial inclusion of women, and I'm not talking about women in metros, I'm talking about tier 4, 5, villages.
Yes.
How to reach that last mile as a digital bank?
Yeah, great. We've got, as I mentioned, we've got 500,000 BC agents in the country. Most of them are in tier 4, 5, 6, in smaller villages. Of this 500,000, who transact with us every month, more than 100,000 of them are women. Yeah?
The BC
agents are women. They are run by women. They are run by women who are effectively entrepreneurs, whose full-time job is actually to run that BC agent, where they open bank accounts for everyone, do financial transactions, and earn a livelihood out of that. So to me, to us, all of us actually, the first point is really about having 100,000 women entrepreneurs, who run their households. Thanks to the opportunity from Airtel Payments Bank. I think that's the first point. And that's something which with every passing quarter we see this number only going up. It's our intent to ensure that there are more women entrepreneurs who become BC agents for the bank, and who eventually then are evangelists of the bank.
Okay.
The second part, which is the point which you mentioned, a lot of consumers, especially in rural, in women consumers in rural, tend to sort of save money, using, as in their house, in various parts of their house. We've seen that shift significantly, where, as I mentioned, they open a bank account with us, and what they do is to make sure that they deposit 100 to 150 rupees every week, into their bank account and use that as a savings account.
So वो हुआ था?
वो अभी भी हो रहा है, and that's happening at scale.
अच्छा.
We've got close to a third of our consumers whom we onboard every month who are women. And in states like Maharashtra and Orissa, approximately half the accounts whom we open every month are accounts opened by women. And that's largely for the purpose of saying that I have small amounts of money, I want to save, I can't go to my nearest bank branch. For a bank, 150 rupees cash deposit is not something as exciting. But for Airtel Payments Bank, given that our purpose is to make sure that we get the bank branch close to your house, which is through a BC agent, the lady can actually just walk across to the BC agent, which is a few minutes away, give that 150 rupees, deposit into their bank account, and the savings starts. So
but Ganesh, for the lack of general awareness, I mean, people can read about what is a payments bank, but if you have to explain what is a payments bank to somebody in village, how do you do that? I mean, what are the top 2 or 3 lines which you tell them? The easiest form which they cannot read on the internet. I mean, of course, they can read payments bank mein aisa hota hai, typical bank mein aisa hota hai. But if you have to explain it, what are the benefits of a payments bank like Airtel Payments Bank? What would that be?
So let me talk about 2 stories, one for rural consumers and one for people like you and me. For low-income consumers, I think the first and most important thing is access, where you can open a bank account with us, at a kirana outlet who is actually your friend, who is possibly a few minutes away from where you stay, who is possibly staying in the same village as you are. And hence, the first and most important thing is around access.
Okay.
The second thing is around trust. You can, as in, we come from the same brand as Airtel, which is amongst possibly the top 2-3 most trusted brands in the country. And hence, there is a lot of trust which consumers have when they, have a relationship with Airtel Payments Bank. The third aspect is really around security. So you can do all your financial transactions with a biometric, where you don't need to remember an MPIN or an OTP. You give your biometric, you withdraw cash, you give a biometric, and you can transfer funds and so on and so forth. So security, I think, happens to be a very, very important aspect. So these are 3 things what Airtel Payments Bank means to consumers in rural.
Now, when it comes to cybersecurity, Ganesh, I mean, people are still scared, when they see scams happening, when they see elderlies especially getting rigged of their money, OTP aaya, bank ne manga, ye hua, wo. We have all heard the stories, and the story gets more personal and leaves a permanent dent on the trust.
True.
Cybersecurity is still an issue, and it will only rise as we go forward. So what are financial literacy is different, but financial hygiene is something which people are not even aware of in India. I mean, people who are online all the time commit mistakes. So for the people who are getting enrolled for the first time in online banking ecosystem, the chances are much more higher. So what are the challenges when it comes to cybersecurity, and how to convince people that they can still be there?
Yeah. See, it's a great point. Especially during post-COVID, Abhinav, I think the total number of cyber frauds which has happened in the country has actually gone up quite significantly. It's happened across the world, but it's more so in India. And it is actually a very, very real problem. Only last month, my mother got a call, from someone posing that he is from a bank and, he wants to offer a great FD to my mother at some 12% or something like that. And my mom was like really thrilled, saying great interest. And, he started sort of doing various stuff. And, thankfully, my mom had the sense of saying, I will not share an OTP. And that's where the call ended. But this is real. It's happening with everyone. Now, to me, or at least the way in which we look at it, Abhinav, is to say that the onus is on us to ensure that we give the tools to customers so that when they do transactions, they know that they are in a fully safe environment. Let me give you 3 examples.
Because Ganesh, at the last mile, you are not there, and neither there is any agent. It becomes a very psychological factor. I might receive an OTP, I'll have to share it. Because it is Airtel, and they pose, these days we have got AI assistants, voice and audio both. So it becomes like, I can impersonate Ganesh and say that I'm here to ask for OTP. So
let me talk through 3 things which we have done, and we have done it at scale where consumers love us. So one is, we've actually introduced a 3rd-factor authentication, which is possibly the only way in which an authentication happens between us and Airtel as a telco. I don't think there's anyone else in India, possibly even in the world, who has implemented that. So a financial transaction, will go through only if we are sure that you, Abhinav, on your phone, on your SIM, has initiated it. So if someone else has your phone or has your SIM or has your username and ID and password, the transaction will not go through. So even if you have, by mistake, shared your OTP, which ideally you shouldn't, but even if you did, the 3rd factor of authentication ensures that the transaction gets declined. I think this is one thing we've done. The second thing, which is again quite similar, is we use AI to actually look at all the transactions which happen on a real-time basis. We actually process 3.5 crore transactions every day. So we use AI and ML actually quite effectively to sort of understand which are the cases where there could be a potential suspect. So for example, if again I have given you a call and I've told you saying there's a great deal, give me your user ID, password, OTPs, MPINs, and so on and so forth. Now, our algorithms actually catch these transactions on a real-time basis. And what they do is, let's assume I have logged into your account and I'm wanting to now move funds out. What it does is it actually asks me for a photograph or a selfie. Yeah. Now, if I have given my selfie, it then matches this selfie with the photograph taken at the time of opening the account. And if the two match, then the transaction goes through, otherwise the transaction gets rejected. So in this scenario where I've
there are multiple layers.
There are multiple layers. So in this scenario where I've taken all your details, but the transaction will still not go through because obviously when I take my selfie, it won't match with yours when the account was opened. The third one we have done is something what we've called as panic button, where again, let's assume that there's a fraud or a potential fraud which has happened. Typical behavior is I now first need to reach out to the bank call center. I need to search what the call center numbers are because I'm sure none of us remember the call center numbers. I then call the call center, explain to them. All of this means that several minutes are gone, by which time the money has gone to multiple places. So what we do is on our phone banking section, there is a button called a panic alarm, where the moment you click on that, the account is frozen, all transactions are come to a halt so that there is no further loss which has happened. And hence it actually, and immediately, an alert goes to us, comes to us as a bank that this particular transactions could potentially be fraudulent. And we then take actions, whatever is possible, to ensure that, money is saved. So these are three things, Abhinav, we've done, because to me, actually it is actions which we need to take from a product innovation standpoint, which makes sure that consumers genuinely feel that doing transactions is actually, a very safe thing. And that's honestly the reason why we've got more than 100 million transacting users on our platform, monthly transacting users on our platform. We are now the third largest bank in the country, if you look at the number of mobile banking users. And I think this has really been the platform on which we have sort of played this.
Okay. And you said you receive a lot of love from the consumers. What kind of love? Do they hug you when you go on the street? Like, do they tell you that they really love you?
So yeah, of course, we get to have a cup of tea in every part of the country. And I think I can take pride in saying that I've had various varieties of tea all over the country. But
you can sponsor more mint money, conversations, and we can, go and tell people about cybersecurity. Think about it.
Yeah.
Lots of there can be better stages of love recycling. Yeah. But coming back to the future, and this would be the last part of the conversation, Ganesh. Future is divided. We have got aware netizens or maybe hyper-aware netizens. For them, everything is bleak. They don't want to share their data. They don't want to share their number. They don't trust corporates. On the other hand, there are people like Dilip Kumar from Kranti. Har kuch acha hoga. Everything is bright. They don't want to even look on the negative side. So how do you, as a payments bank, how do you balance the future? So that it balances both the sides.
Yeah, see, I think for us, the future, from a opportunity, I think there's opportunity and there's responsibility, both. Let me talk about responsibility. I think, as I said, our core purpose, is to drive digital and financial inclusion. And that's the reason why we exist as a bank. Everything else is secondary. We want to make sure that we do it in a manner in which customers' monies are protected, because ultimately we are helping transfer money from one part to the other. And hence people's monies are at play here. So it's important that we do it in a very responsible manner. And third, you spoke about customer data. For us, we are very clear that we will only use data if the customer has given us an explicit consent to say that, yes, use it for XYZ purposes. If we don't have that explicit consent, we don't use that data. We use it for transaction monitoring, which is required to understand whether customers are genuinely initiating the transaction or a customer is not. For example, if a customer has never done an e-com transaction ever, an e-commerce transaction, ever in the last 24 months, all of a sudden there is a high value transaction coming up, that raises an alarm. And that's the...
So you alert the customer.
And that's the kind of stuff which we do.
Okay.
So to me, I think being responsible and driving responsible growth, I think, is the most important aspect, and that's how we sort of balance this.
Sure. Now coming to the last part of the conversation, Ganesh, because Airtel Payments Bank and you personally vouch for financial hygiene. So there's a section which we want to close this conversation. It's called profit or pass. Okay. So if you have a yes, you can say profit, or maybe you can say yes, or you can just say pass if you don't agree with that section. And there are some other questions where you have to choose sides.
Okay.
Shall we start?
Yeah, sure.
Buy now, pay later. Profit or pass?
Pass.
25 दिन में पैसा double.
Pass for sure.
Okay. Financial influencers teaching financial habits.
Well, I think...
You cannot get a profit or pass.
Okay, profit with an asterisk. For example, I know that SEBI has, regulated some of these folks, so it's a function of the individual, but profit.
If you get a chance to be an influencer, will you leave your job at Airtel?
No, I would never.
Okay. Sharing Aadhaar details over WhatsApp.
Absolutely pass.
Pass. Okay. Saving credit card or debit card details on any website.
Well, again, it depends, on which is the website and
I
who
use
is the
any.
aggregator. Huh?
I use the word
Any is pass.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Sharing OTP over phone to random callers.
pass for sure.
Okay. Udhar from dost versus udhar from rishtedar. Whom will you choose?
A bank.
A bank, not even a dost, not even a rishtedar. There was no third option, Ganesh. Come on.
No, you said some of them have, so.
Either a friend or a rishtedar. Whom will you choose now?
Okay, a friend who works in a bank.
Oh, come on. Okay. Loan to buy laptop versus loan to buy latest trending footwear or clothing. You can't wait.
Okay, laptop.
Okay. Oh, but why laptop? Let me push you a little here.
I just like technology, and I'm sure sort of laptops get better with every passing year. So.
Ganesh, thank you so much for your time, but this was a lovely conversation. You have any closing remarks you want to add?
I think at Airtel Payments Bank, each one of us who works in this organization is really proud of the fact that, our key purpose is about driving digital and financial inclusion.
Okay.
And over the last several years, we've got a large number of customers, as I mentioned, more than 100 million consumers using our platform every month. And that brings us a lot of satisfaction. And this is something which we'd like to sort of scale up even further as we go forward. All of us in the payments bank industry has made a representation to RBI to allow us small ticket lending. If that happens, then I think there'll be even bigger impact we can create in the society, in the ecosystem.
Okay.
So I think that's what I would sort of want to close by.
If I open an account with Airtel Payments Bank and if you get your lending approval license, can I get no interest loan or maybe lifelong subscription for free?
No, you won't.
What's the point?
The second point, which is, Abhinav, I love you. It's been a great conversation. Really enjoyed the
I didn't pay him money to say that, by the way. Huh? Thank you, Ganesh. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very
This
much.
was
Thanks
a
a
fun
ton.
conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is all from this episode of Why Not Mint Money. Do tune into next episodes and have some fun on the way. See you soon.